Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy ROCCONI. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. Here we are, continuing our series. We've talked about the sacred assembly, particularly aspect of it, and I know you've had a question about it with a family with their son, and we have it with a lot of people, is when people are stressful and anxious and worried, it's interesting. One of the typical comments, particularly amongst believers, is, well, get over it and just trust God.
Right.
And people say, yeah, sure.
And we're doing no one any favor by giving that response, by the way.
Is, well, you should just trust God. And ultimately, is that true? Yes, it is true. It does require us to trust God. That's going to be absolutely true, because the outcomes, the solutions are going to be His solutions, and they're not. They generally take time,
right,
to work themselves through, because our life is based upon walking up the path, and there's going to have a path, and there's time to get resolution, and by the way, while you're on that path, guess what? Other things come up, and other issues come up. That's why a lot of people are in what you've described it as stress anxiety or anxiety disorder, because it piles up so much,
right,
that you just can't handle it. It's just
right.
overwhelming to you.
They're overwhelmed by the whole thing.
Nothing ever seems to work out, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse, particularly as a believer, because we say, well, how come God doesn't fix this? And He said, well, you have to walk with me and let me be king and trust that I'm going to resolve it, but you got to walk with me to resolve it, because, and again, if you look at it in a really simple way, is my resolution is along my path, and you got to be walking on my path. And if you're walking on your own path, well, you're not on my path, and I can't deliver. I can't deliver it to you. So it's kind of that simple in a way, but it's very complex. So the admonition is, well, as a believer, you shouldn't be worried. That doesn't really help anybody,
right?
Because it's,
and in fact, I'd argue that it hurts people. Because what I see, and I don't know if you see this a lot too, but I see a lot of people honestly pretending that things are okay. And in doing that, they're actually missing the invitation to allow God to bring real healing to it.
Right.
And so, and I think there is this pressure, not intentional, I think, by anybody, but a pressure that is put on believers by other believers, that we have to just put on a good face and say we're trusting God. And so we press it all, we shove it all under the surface and just, okay, I'm trusting Him, and I keep going. And instead things just build and build and build. And we don't actually see resolution because we're not doing the work of walking with Him in it.
Right. So we are called to, jumpstart the process. And we've talked about this concept of sacred assembly, where we're encouraging people to either let us, and you talked about the situation where there's a parent who could actually facilitate that then for their son, who's not going to be able to understand any of this per se, or he's not going to call a sacred assembly, but you can. So you can call it for somebody else, and say, would you be willing for me to come and help you with that? And usually, by the way, my experience has been that most people say yes, because you're approaching it with, hey, I understand where you are. I really understand where you are. And I know it's a difficult place, and it's very unpleasant, and it's very heavy. Would you allow me to walk with you so that we can get some resolution to that. And by the way, I'm telling you up front, I'm not going to tell you what to do because I don't know the answers, but I know God does, and I can facilitate the process. And so, and let's start with, would you be willing for me to do it? And most of the time they say, I kind of would, mostly because they're so under it. They're so heavy. So anybody coming along that says, I can provide some solution, generally speaking, they're going to say, okay, so if this parent goes to their son and said, hey, I understand where you are. Let's just start here. And what you do is you're not laying on them what you should.
Right.
It's, no, let's just start here. What? Well, just tell me what they are. What's the issue? Okay. Write about that issue. What do you see as the truth about that issue? Okay. We'll know what to do next. We'll know what to do next. Headed toward God's solution.
Right.
And that's the cool thing, that's why God says, I'll call you the repairer of the breach, because what? You're following me in the process of letting me resolve the breach. And you get the privilege of that. So it's really a beautiful thing that we are called to that. And so our sacred assembly is so critical to what I call jumpstart the process, because the person, either you who are under the pile, are trying to do this on your own, and it's getting heavier and heavier and heavier.
Right.
And you actually can be the one to call the sacred assembly and say, could you please come and help me?
Right.
And walk with me. Yep. Get a spouse, get an inner circle, and go through these steps. Or, like those parents, well, you could call the sacred assembly on behalf of somebody else, and let's start the process. And we talked about the process of, write it down. What's the truth? What's the next step? And once you understand the truth of it, see, God says, I need to shift everything from focusing so much on the problem to now focus on my resolution. Right. The healing piece of it. So that, and the analogy, I use this quite a bit. When I was actually, Linda and I were married and we had 3 children. And I wound up with a severe pain in my stomach, and I go to the hospital. I drive myself to the hospital at like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, you drove yourself?
Yeah, I drove myself. I didn't want to bother Linda, so I drive myself to the hospital. And they go through all this, paperwork, and then finally somebody comes out. And then they made this question. Now you're not here by yourself, right? You didn't drive yourself to the hospital, right? Yes. We can't help you. You have to go home.
Wow.
You have to go home, get somebody else to drive you here, so that we follow our protocol. Which is kind of funny because they're sending me away with pain. And so, okay, I get in the car, I go home. By the time I get home, I'm fine.
Oh no.
So I think, it went away. I guess it was just bad food or something. So a week later, same thing happens. Severe pain. So I said, hey, Linda, you're driving me to the hospital.
This time, take me, please.
So they drive me to the hospital, and I remember that they had the paperwork on me already. So they go to Linda. Because Rich is coming in, severe pain and all that, and they say to him, "Is he on drugs? Is that why he's here? Does he need drugs?" My wife says, "No, he's just got a pain." Okay, all right. Right. So we go through the process of getting admitted, and they run tests, and my pain is getting worse and worse and worse, and so bad. And I have a high tolerance for pain, but it was I couldn't even stand it. So while they're doing these tests, they're giving me morphine, and they load me up with morphine till finally, and literally it took like 5 doses of it to, okay, finally I could not have as severe pain. So they said, well, we have no clue what the problem is. We're going to put you in the hospital. Your wife will come visit you, but you got to go. You got to go stay here. Okay, so I go in the room, and they've run ultrasound and a few tests on me, but they don't know what it is. So I'm in bed. It's 11 o'clock at night. A surgeon comes in, and he says, "I had emergency surgery. I just finished it. You're on my list. Since I'm here, I'm going to go see what's going on and come back and we'll talk about it." Okay, so he leaves, comes back 30 minutes later. It's now 11:30. He says, "Son, you got two choices. You're going to go to surgery right now, or you're going to die in the next hour."
Oh my goodness.
I said, well, I think I'll pick the first.
I think I'll take surgery.
And he says,
Wow.
Your gallbladder is severely infected, and it has burst, and it evidently burst a week or two ago, because you got gangrene. You got gangrene everywhere in your inner cavity, and it's just about ready to break through the peritoneal cavity, and you're done. You're going to be done. You'll be out just like that.
Wow.
So I gotta go take care of that right now. Okay, we do. So he does, and I have a scar still from here down to my belly button, because he had to pull it apart and take all of that stuff
and clean all of it out. Wow.
And he couldn't even get it all. It took him 5.5 hours of surgery. And then they actually couldn't close the wound because it was still had to be coming out. So for a month, I'm basically laying around at home, having the stuff ooze out until it healed all by itself, because he said, I can't close it because I'll close more into it. So he talked to me about, tell me about your history. Tell me, did you eat a lot of fried food as a kid? Yeah. Have you eaten a lot of fatty food? Yeah. And he talked about, he said, well, the reason that you got this problem is that you've eaten poorly, probably all your life.
For most of your life,
and you damaged your gallbladder, and it's just getting worse and worse. And you kept eating poorly, and you overlooked any pain you got, and it finally, burst. Okay, so it's your fault. Okay. Now every day he comes in. Now he said that one time. We know the cause. We know the cause of it. From that point forward, never again did he say anything about the problem. His question was very simple. How's the healing going?
Oh, that's such a great example.
How's the healing going? How are you feeling? How's this therapy that I'm doing for you working? Are you feeling better? Are you good, so that I can release you from the hospital? And then, by the way, you got to keep staying with the healing until it's healed. Don't quit early. But he says, never again did he ever talk about, you idiot, look at what you did to yourself.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, we know that happened. How about the healing? How's the healing going? And so what God says, and he says this in Isaiah 58, is identify the issue. We're talking about a yoke. We're talking about a burden. We're talking about anxiety, fear, and worry. He said, yeah, I know that. What is it? What's the truth about it? And now I got to shift you to the healing piece of it, the resolution piece of it. And that's why he says, stop thinking about it, and don't point the finger. Even in my case, where you caused it,
pointing at yourself. Even
he even said, well, what good is it going to do to keep beating yourself up about it? How about if I just heal you? How about if we go to the healing piece of it? And so God shifts it to the healing piece of it. And so as we go through the steps, now we are walking with God step by step by step into his wisdom, into his resolution, into his steps of do this and let me do this, and or it's a heart issue and let me help you with this. And there will be a resolution. We just have to stay with it. And so as those parents, they don't have to provide the answer. They just have to provide the process and call the sacred assembly. Okay, now he goes into an interesting conversation about this. And he introduces the concept of Sabbath. So again, start with verse 11. He reminds us, here's what I'm doing. And then he introduces this aspect of Sabbath. So go ahead and bring that in.
Okay. The Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your desire in scorched places and make your bones strong. And you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. And your ancient ruins shall be rebuilt, and you shall raise up the foundations of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to dwell in. If you turn back your foot from the Sabbath, from doing your pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, and the holy day of the Lord honorable, if you honor it, not going your own ways or seeking your own pleasure or talking idly, then you shall take delight in the Lord, and I will make you ride on the heights of the earth. I will feed you with the heritage of Jacob your father, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken.
Yeah. So he introduces this interesting concept of the Sabbath. And while I'm bringing resolution, I need you to understand something about Sabbath. Because Sabbath, as you include that in the process, brings you to, he's describing there the covenant. I'm going to deliver to you the full covenant, blessed to be a blessing, and it includes this aspect of Sabbath. So let's talk about it at a couple simple levels. Sabbath, and we'll get into Leviticus that describes it in detail here, but it's a day, it's a time of rest.
Right.
Resting. Okay, so think about the simplicity of that is you're working, you're going to work every day. And God, by the way, said it took me 6 days to create this, and on the seventh day I took a break. I rested.
Right.
When you take a break from work, for example, what do?
Do things to refresh, usually.
Yeah. You stop working and you go do something else. And there's something else is a time which he describes it is a time of refreshment, a time of resting from the things that you're involved with, and basically take a break. Sabbath is take a break, focus on just enjoying me, and then enjoying the day of fellowship with others by what? Not working, which means, by the way, and we can talk a little bit about this, is that most people these days still work on Sabbath, Sundays. Why? What are you doing? Emails, text, cell phones.
Using it as a catch-up day, often.
Work stuff. You're actually still working, and you're not breaking. You're not taking the break. And God's saying, no, I need you to practice taking a true break and worship, focus on worship, which is a fellowship of worship, hearing God what I have to speak to you, getting you refreshed spiritually, and then enjoying the day of rest. And rest is taking a break from your routine, so that you go do things, and that doesn't mean you just sit around and do nothing. It's do things that are refreshing to you, do things that are enjoyable to you. So it can be going out to dinner. It could even be going to a sporting event together. But it's a time where you're just relaxing and doing things that are relaxing, particularly around fellowship. Of are you talking to one another? Are you enjoying each other? And so he says, take a Sabbath. So now, in the context of what we've just learned, we're talking about process and a sacred assembly. The sacred assembly is the process of resolving the issue. So that takes time and energy and focus, and sometimes even intensity of, I need to try to understand this. What step are you asking me to take? I'm struggling with taking this step, but I'm going to stay with it until I do. I'm going to cling to you. And then he introduces the idea of Sabbath in the middle of that. And so this is what it means, is you got to have moments during the process of taking a break. In other words,
that's good.
Take a break from all of it. I don't even want you focusing. I don't want you talking about this. I don't want you thinking about this. No matter where you are in the process, let it lay there for a minute. That's what Sabbath is all about, is you let it lay there today, and what do? You need to pick it up tomorrow.
Right.
But today, take a break.
And refresh.
And refresh.
And refocus, yeah.
And don't, and give, you got to have yourself these moments. And by the way, a Sabbath is at least weekly, and it could be more often than that. But when I'm dealing with these situations, like I was talking about with this couple, while they're going through the, what's the truth? What is God saying about this? Where does he want to bring the healing that we just talked about? The encouragement is, okay, we're going down the path really well. Hey, how about today or the next couple days, take a break from this. Take a Sabbath from this. Just relax a little bit. Don't talk about it. Don't think about it. Don't write about it. Just take a break, and we'll come back to it and pick it up again. But you need these moments of refreshment to be able to, kind of let things, what I call let the air out of the building pressure, and let it out a little bit and relax, and then pick it up again. And if you do that consistently, you recognize that, life is going to continue. This isn't everything that controls me. And
although it can feel all encompassing, it can feel that if way. You allow it to be.
Yeah. And let's go to Leviticus 23, verse 3, and then 23 to 25. It describes Sabbath a little bit more. Go ahead.
Okay. 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work. It is a Sabbath to the Lord in all your dwelling places.
Okay, then 25. 23 to 25.
And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the people of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, on the 1st day of the month, you shall observe a day of solemn rest, a memorial proclaimed with blast of trumpets, a holy convocation. You shall not do any ordinary work, and you shall present a food offering to the Lord.
Okay. So he says, interesting enough, he describes this in the context of a sacred assembly. That while you're in sacred assembly, and remember, we've described it as gathering together,
right,
to bring focus to an issue by not being distracted with the normal, but we're going to give this attention, and that's process. We've talked about that. Okay, while you're doing that, he says, oh, by the way, while you're in sacred assembly, as the Lord has, take a day of rest, a day of refreshment, as unto God, which is encouraging us that that's his nature of how life is supposed to be, is you need breaks. You need to, yes, you're working on resolution, but while I'm resolving it, give yourself a break. And then when you give yourself a break, first of all, you realize that, you know what, I'm still living, and that worry, that fear isn't dominating me, because I'm actually enjoying the day, just taking a break. By the way, why?
Even as you describe that, I know, I remember talking to a friend recently about this, and they were talking about the real struggle for them in the idea that even though they know they need that break, and so in action, they are carrying out that break, they are unable to sometimes give themselves the mental Sabbath that goes with it.
Yes.
So while they're physically present in whatever this is that they're experiencing as Sabbath, their mind is still spinning on the rest of it.
Yes. Okay. Now,
can you talk to that a little bit?
Well, take that. Again, what's the problem? I'm burdened, and my mind goes to the burden. And what are you trying to do?
Right.
Resolve it. Okay. The purpose of the sacred assembly. First of all, we're bringing attention to it. We're going to help you through the process. It will get resolved. So we're trying to give you that encouragement. Now, how could I help you take a break? It's really interesting. It's not to say to you, take a break.
Right. Or just saying, stop thinking about it.
Yeah, because you can't see that's the whole issue of the sacred assembly is, well, you can't. You're burdened by this. Okay, so how can I help you take a break? This is really cool. I can take you with me, and we're going to go do something to occupy your time that's going to, by definition, allow you to do about something different because you're involved with something different. So I would, if I'm going to help you take a break, and particularly if I know you, or I'm going to ask you, what kind of things do you enjoy? Well, I like this or that. I like going to a museum. I like taking a hike. I like skiing. I like golfing. Okay, we're going to take a break. I'm going to invite you to go with me, and we're going to go do what you like doing. And now you're occupied, and you don't even realize it. Is that your mind is now engaged in something new, and you're not worried about it so much. And then you begin to realize is, oh, that was enjoyable. Okay, let's do that more often. And how can I help you take breaks by being occupied? And then, see that when we look of rest, this is important. Can rest be napping and literally doing nothing? Yes, it can.
Right.
And by the way, that might be a healthy thing to do, is to say, I say that to Linda quite a bit. Hey, honey, I know you've been weary and a little bit tired. Hey, this afternoon, why don't you take a nap?
And giving her permission to give herself permission to
let me take. I'll take care of dinner. You take a nap, and then we'll come back together after that nap, because you need a quote rest. Just physically, you need a rest. So that's something that can be included in it. But it's usually, and this is the way that I bring refreshment to Linda, and she does to me, is okay. And I'll do this. I'll walk into Linda and say, okay, get your coat. We're getting in the car. What? Just get in the car. We're going on a little adventure here. And so what happens is I've taken Linda from her focus on my issue to we're going to go do something different, and we're going to process in a different way, and we're not even going to focus on you working through this issue. Sometimes it can be helpful, but hey, we're just going to go have some fun and do something completely different. I'm getting you away from your routine, getting you away from your house, and I'm going to occupy you with something that by itself is going to bring you refreshment. And so what you can do is actually facilitate that with somebody else and say, I'm going to give you Sabbath. I'm going to help you rest by what? Getting you occupied in something else that's refreshing to you. So it's really interesting that it's not a statement, well, you should go rest. It's let me help you go rest. How do you do that?
Oh, that's good.
Let me have you go do something different, or permission to take a break, or take a nap, or sit outside in the patio, or by the pool. You said you like the pool.
I love. Yep, that is a family go-to.
Okay, so describe why that can be a time of rest for you. What does that pool do for you guys?
For us, it's a place of conversation and laughter. That just, anything can happen when we're sitting by the pool, truly. And it's just it's truly just genuine family time together, and even honestly, it's refreshing to me to go sit by myself and enjoy a book, and just the rest of the responsibilities are at bay, and it's just a time to be.
Okay. So if you found going out to the pool is restful, and let's look at rest equal to refreshing. Okay. It's refreshing. What you're saying is, well, I stop doing the normal, and I just go out there and just sitting by the pool with a book. Well, you don't normally do that inside.
No, right.
So you get to go do that. Well, that's refreshing to you. And that's a description of an activity that is refreshing because you've done something different. And he says, in that verse of Isaiah, he said, don't do what you want to do, which is focus on your stuff, but rather I'm gonna relax and I'm gonna go do something where I'm not focusing on my stuff. I'm doing something different, and you can facilitate that. So he gives us this beautiful idea of, and he introduces Sabbath as, get in the habit of doing that, particularly when you're fearful, worried, anxiety. He said on top of that, when you start to get to peace, keep up that routine. Have Sabbath days, Sundays, particularly, be days of refreshment.
Right.
What is it that you are uniquely geared to with you personally, you and your family, you and your spouse? What are the things that bring refreshment to you where you aren't occupied with the routine, the work, the stuff, even stuff around the house, but rather I'm gonna set that day aside and let it be truly a refreshing period. Now, by the way, on top of that, Linda and I learned this early, interesting enough, and we're really good at it, is we take quarterly vacations. And vacation can be a weekend. So when I was working, 5 days a week, well, we'd leave Friday afternoon and come back Sunday afternoon, and we would just get out of the house.
Right.
And we're just going to go someplace local, maybe travel. If I'm on business, I'll take her with me. But we would take these quarterly breaks. For sure, let's stop our routine. And we're just going to go someplace where we enjoy being, that's stimulating, adventurous, and go do things that and we're not going to focus on heavy stuff. We're just going to go enjoy each other. And one thing we can talk about is, hey, how are we doing in our relationship? And we can talk about that. But we're not taking the list of all the things that heavier hearted. Yeah, we'll get back to that next week.
Right.
Let's go enjoy that. And then, by the way, on top of it, we would take annual vacations. And what we did is we always went by ourselves alone. And then we had a separate time where we took the family. And so we actually always did at least 2 vacations a year, one for just us to get refreshed. And then we took the family to have them enjoy. And what we try to do, and we still do, is create what we call magical memories of everything we do. We want it to be grand. We want it to be special, and we always did it. And we never worried about it. One thing we did understand, because you can get in the position of, well, I need to save all the money I can, so I can't spend it on that. And God said, I want you to spend it on that and enjoy the time during your lifetime to build those memories. And now here we are, older, with kids and grandkids, and guess what? What do they talk about? Those memories.
Right.
Hey, son, you did well. Yes, you were willing to not be greedy and enjoy life while you went along. So Sabbath is really critical for, in the middle of the issue you got, 1. 2 is get in the habit of weekly doing it around your Sunday worship time, and then the day, quarterly, and then vacations, but take the breaks. And then, by the way, there's a whole thing called sabbatical. And that's where people take an extended period of time off. Like I'm going to leave my work, my thing, and I'm going to just get away from all of it for a period and go do something totally different. So it's quite fun. And let's look at, as we kind of finish this little piece of it, let's look at a real example. Go to Nehemiah chapter 8, verses 1 through 12. Nehemiah 8, 1 through 12.
And all the people gathered as one man into the square before the water gate. And they told Ezra the scribe to bring the book of the law of Moses that the Lord had commanded Israel. So Ezra the priest brought the law before the assembly, both men and women, and all who could understand what they heard, on the first day of the 7th month. And he read from it facing the square before the water gate from early morning until midday, in the presence of the men and women and those who could understand. And the ears of all the people were attentive to the book of the law. And Ezra the scribe stood on a wooden platform that they had made for the purpose. And beside him stood Mattithiah, Shema, Ananiah, Uriah, Hilkiah and Messiah, I don't know how to say that,
That's good.
on his right hand, and Pedaiah, Mishael, Malchijah, Hashem, Hashbaddanah, Zechariah, and Meshullam on his left hand. Boy, that's a mouthful.
Yep.
And Ezra opened the book in the sight of all the people, for he was above the people. And as he opened it, all the people stood. And Ezra blessed the Lord, the great God. And all the people answered, Amen, amen, lifting up their hands. And they bowed their heads and worshiped the Lord with their faces to the ground. Also, Jeshua, Bani, Sherebiah, Jacob, blah, 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 blah,
Yep.
and the Levites helped the people to understand the law while the people remained in their places. And they read from the book, from the law of God clearly, and they gave the sense so that the people understood the reading. And Nehemiah, who was the governor, and Ezra, the priest and the scribe, and the Levites who taught the people, said to all the people, This day is holy to the Lord your God. Do not mourn or weep. For all the people wept as they heard the words of the law. Then he said to them, Go your way, eat the fat and drink sweet wine, and send portions to anyone who has nothing ready. For this day is holy to our Lord. Do not be grieved, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. So the Levites calmed all the people, saying, Be quiet, for this day is holy. Do not be grieved. And all the people went their way to eat and drink, and to send portions, and to make great rejoicing, because they had understood the words that were declared to them.
Yeah. They've been in distress. Nehemiah, by the way, was one of the remnant. His family, he was born actually in Babylonia. And God's asked him to come back and rebuild the city, start rebuilding the city. The temple had already been built by Zerubbabel and actually Ezra. But it was sitting there vacant. So he called Nehemiah and said, come back and begin the restoration process. Because interesting enough, in chapter 1, it says everybody is in great distress. Worry, fear, and anxiety.
Nehemiah was in great distress when he saw the shape of everything.
Yeah,
it broke his heart.
Whoa, this is bad. So he builds a wall, and then he said, okay, now that piece is done, the people are in great distress. Okay, son, let me take you through the process, and let's get restored here. So what does he do? Call a sacred assembly.
Right.
What do? Let's gather together, and we know what the issue is. And you can read this prior to that chapter 8. It's these are all the problems they're having, and they're in distress about it, worry, fear, and anxiety. So we have these. Let's gather together and do what? Let's see what God would say about this.
Right.
As God starts to speak to them, and they helped interpret. Here's what he says. This is how it applies to us. And all we're doing, all Nehemiah and Ezra did was what? Let's just go seek God. Let me bring you together. And you even talked about this as a parent to a child. Is it wasn't the people who called the sacred assembly. It was Ezra and Nehemiah. Okay, let me call that to resolve your stress.
Yeah.
Come on. Let's get together. Let's go hear what God has to say. They did. Let me help you interpret it. They did. Interesting enough, the reaction was what? Sorrow.
Right. They're mourning and repentance, really.
Because, God's saying this. That's not us. And what does Ezra and Nehemiah say? We know.
Yep.
Relax. Everything is now forward. We're not going to focus on what you did wrong, because that's why they're sorrowful.
Right.
Is, man, we haven't done any of this stuff, and look at what we did wrong. And God says, I know. I don't care about that. We don't care about that. How about if we just go forward into my resolution and focus? And what does he say to him? Celebrate. Right. I want you to celebrate.
And it's not even resolved yet, and he's still calling for celebration and anticipation of.
Anticipation is now that, you understand that. My resolution is all that I've just spoken to you. I'm going to bring about the resolution to this, and because of it, he says a couple things. One, celebrate, and implied here is and of course the Israelis they're really good at this. They know how to celebrate because of the feast. Is yes, it's an offering of I'm coming to follow you, and I come with a contrite heart. But now, move into the feast part of it. Move into the celebration part of it. Move into the joyful part of it, and do that together. And so what he's saying is, take a Sabbath. That's why we talked about Sabbath. Take a Sabbath while you're in this. So it's going to get resolved. I'm going to instruct you. Believe it. And as we go through it, one thing I'd like you to do is take a Sabbath. Take a rest. Take a break. Celebrate. Believe it. Reinforce it with each other. And then we'll get into the definitions of the resolution as it comes out in a practical way, that now that you understand things, I'm going to start guiding you into it. And you can celebrate that. So he brings in this aspect of let me guide you, focus on the resolution, celebrate and take Sabbath and enjoy it, and then let's go and let me shift everything from your anxiety and fear and worry to trusting I'm bringing the resolution and it's going to be fantastic. And Nehemiah is this great example of this, is that he understood it, so he didn't say to the people, okay, well, I read the law, so I want you to do this, this, and this, and this, and this. You should. What did he do?
He simply took them, he read the law to them and let God do the work.
Let's just go to the Word, and let's see what it says. By the way, I already know what it says. But I'm not here to enforce my idea of what you think you should do. Why don't we just hear God? He'll let us know. And do you see what he did? He brought process.
Yes, you're right.
To the issue is, okay, I know where you are. Yeah, we understand it. We're not denying that. But now that we know it, we know the truth about that, let's go see what God has to say and start walking down his path. So everything's shifted. I mean, look in a literally one day. They went from literally days and weeks of mourning and heaviness to, and what did it say they did? They actually went out and celebrated.
Right.
Like,
right.
Oh, got it. Oh yeah, got it. Fantastic. And it just shifted in one day. Why? Because Nehemiah called the sacred assembly. He jump-started the process and brought everybody together. And that's what we can do for basically, if we're in the position where we understand it, well, then let us call the sacred assembly. In other words, get people around you that can join you in the process of let's go get this resolved. If you're the one that knows that you're helping somebody else, well, you call the sacred assembly like Nehemiah did. Don't tell them what to do.
Right.
Just let's go through the process of enjoying this and seeing what God would have to do. And as we look at that, there's a really cool statement about that. But go to Psalm 62:8. I don't know if that's on your list or not, but let's go read that. Psalm 62:8.
Let me pull that up real quick.
It's just one thing as part of the process of going to Sabbath and celebration.
Okay, hang on just a second. Sorry. Here we go. 62:8. Trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us.
Yeah. He's saying that when you're heavy-hearted, kind of do what Nehemiah did, is where you pour out your heart because he's your refuge and your strength, and he releases the focus on the problem and my contribution to that problem, guilt or heaviness. And he says, no, call upon God and cry out. And that's why in a sacred assembly, as I'm talking with people, or like your parents are talking to that son, it's share with me, why are you heavy-hearted? And what you actually want that to come out. You
Mm-hmm.
want that to be known. And even in Nehemiah, he said, it's good that you're crying out, because they
Right.
said that they mourned, they were mourning, they were
Mm-hmm.
sorrowful. Let's get it on the table. What is that? Okay, now that you're there,
Mm-hmm.
let's release that, because everything's now forward. Let's
Mm-hmm.
release that and go to God's solution, because he says, what? There is now no condemnation for those that are in Christ
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. Come with me. And he says, now that you're back with me, and that's why the sacred assembly is a beautiful way to gather people back. Welcome back, son. Welcome back,
Mm-hmm.
daughter. Grab my hand. Let's go. The resolution. How's the healing going?
Mm-hmm.
Let me focus on that. So it's a really beautiful thing. Of the whole process is intended to release the heaviness
Mm-hmm.
and get you engaged in something that by itself releases the heaviness, because you start to realize, hey, I'm going to get to a solution, which is what we actually
Mm-hmm.
need and why we're seeking answers. We need
Mm-hmm.
real answers. So it's really pretty cool.
I love how he inserts Sabbath right in the middle of that, though, because I think, one of the things that I see with people, um, in going into this sort of process is that it can be overwhelming to them. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, they're
Yes.
already overwhelmed. And
Yes.
so then the idea of them having to press in and actually seek God and do the work, that's overwhelming to them. And so just the sweetness of God to say, yeah, well, by the way, in the middle of this, I still have Sabbath and refreshment and everything for you. But that takes intentionality and planning on our part as well.
Yes.
Just like the Israelites gathered manna on the sixth day for the seventh, we do have to be intentional with the gift of Sabbath.
Yeah. And when you say intentional, describe what that means so you can help everybody see the necessity of that, and what does that look like? When you say intentional, what are you thinking of there?
In my mind, when I'm saying that, is it truly, almost needs to be, not even almost, it needs to be planned for.
Yeah.
That you set aside. Maybe there are things that you do, if you're talking about, just on a Sunday afternoon doing some sort of Sabbath activity, you may need to have had your kids do all their homework on Saturday.
Yes.
So that the entire family is free to enjoy this Sabbath time you have set apart. If part of Sabbath for you is freedom from cooking and everything else, so you plan that you're going to eat out, or you cook ahead, or, but some of those things, just intentional things that allow you to be free and fully present in the Sabbath to enjoy that refreshment and refilling.
Yeah. Yeah. And the intentionality of it is, again, you're bringing some focus to it, so that you're thinking
Mm-hmm.
about, talking about what would be enjoyable, refreshing for
Right.
you on the weekend, and you can process that. So Linda particularly is terrific at this, because she'll be thinking about, hey, Rich, when we're together on Sunday, why don't we do these things, because it would really thrill our kid's heart, or our grandson's
Mm-hmm.
heart, or our granddaughter's heart. Let's go do this. Or even ask them, hey, what would be thrilling for
Mm-hmm.
you? And hey, by the way, if we do that, could you get your homework done before that?
Right.
So that you're
Right.
not under, yeah, I'm kind of enjoying this, but I got to get back to
But
homework.
I'm distracted.
I'm so
Yes,
distracted.
exactly.
We got to provide opportunity to not be distracted, and
Yeah.
help people plan that out.
Right.
Can you truly break and have the freedom to break and enjoy the
Right.
break? And that's intentional.
Yeah. The other thing that I see as an intentional part is that I think sometimes we can, even in Sabbath, we can get in routine, and routine tends to not refresh,
Right.
you know? And so if Sabbath always looks the same, a lot of times it begins to not feel like Sabbath,
That's true.
and so I think keeping that fresh, one of the things that I was just thinking, boy, we should get back to this, that we did, there was a season, a summer that we had pretty much everybody home. This was when Joshua was in college, and Emily had come back too, and it was just a sweet, sweet season. And we as a family decided we were going to be very intentional with Sabbath, but Sabbath wasn't going to be of our own choosing, even. And so part of our family practice that summer was we're going to each take time throughout the week to pray about what God wants us to do on Sabbath. to get us out of ruts, honestly,
Yeah.
of just doing the same routine or whatever. And we had more fun with the adventures. One week God would really lay heavy on Emily's heart. This is what you're supposed to go do for Sabbath. And then we'd be praying, oh yeah, okay, we can confirm that. Let's go. And so there were different Sabbath adventures all summer long as God spoke different ideas to everybody
Yeah.
and invited us all into the process. And that was a fun way, keeping it fresh and honestly learning to listen to him as well,
Yeah.
because sometimes what we think is refreshing is actually not what's going to be
That's
refreshing.
right. Yeah. That's good. I love that intentionality. Well, as we finish our session today, it's be purposeful in calling the sacred assembly and include the idea of Sabbath into the process. Take a break. Don't always be so intense. Yes, we're seeking resolution, but God wants us to rest from that while he's bringing it. Yeah, there's more to go. We'll pick it up, tomorrow. Your work can stop. Your homework can stop. Go do something that's really going to be enjoyable and refreshing. And you can facilitate that for other people. You're the one calling the sacred assembly. You're the one that's bringing in the rest. You're the one that's guiding us to the God's answer and solution, and make it so that you can either call the process yourself, or you can do it for somebody else. And so as we finish this maybe has raised up lots of questions that people might have about it. Is send it to us on the YouTube or questions@afjministry.com, and we're happy to deal with these specifics. If you've got something specific that you'd like us to bring up, we'd love to talk about it or get back to you on a private level, but we're happy to do that. And we'll continue this discussion further as we go further into, now that we're seeking God's answer, how do we receive God's answer? And that's what we're going to move into next.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. Thank you for joining us today, everyone, and be encouraged. God has so much for each of you.
Amen.
So hold tight to that.
Yes.
Have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Pick it up again.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.